The day before our engagement, Noah, my boyfriend of 5 years, Venmo transferred me $9,900 as compensation, along with a single message: Olivia, consider this money compensation for 5 years of emotional investment. Let's not get married. Before I could even lock my phone, a post from his mother's social media feed popped up. Thank you, Briar, for 3 years of companionship. This engagement is finally complete. In that moment, I realized that 5 years of shared hardships and joys were merely me building an empire for someone else. Gritting my teeth, I scrolled through my contacts and dialed the number I had once refused. Didn't you say you needed a partner for a marriage of convenience? Now, I'm ready to marry. Since family says I'm not worthy, then I'll wear the most expensive wedding gown and marry in a blaze of glory, stepping over all of you. Noah transferred me $9,900. I had to read the accompanying message 3 times before its meaning sank in. Olivia, consider this money compensation for 5 years of emotional investment. Let's not get married. I thought it was April's day, yet here I was, still trying on dresses at the bridal boutique. My hair was just done, and the staff outside were preparing my second wedding dress. We had ordered 3 in total. And after trying on the first one, I get this news. Seriously, that's just like him. Before I could even catch my breath, his mother immediately posted on her social media feed, "Thank you, Briar, for 3 years of companionship. This engagement is finally complete." The picture showed the hotel engagement venue. I had chosen the balloons 2 days ago, arranged the menu, and even designed the stage layout late into the night. But the bride was someone else. I managed a smile, but my eyes stung, and tears streamed down my face uncontrollably. I had known him since I was 17, and we went to different cities for college after the college entrance exam. We endured a long-distance relationship, struggled through rented apartments, and even started a business together. Among the startup funds were my childhood savings accumulated over years, my hard-earned scholarships, and my part-time job wages. Every penny was steeped in my youth and dreams. And now, he casually said this money was just compensation for 5 years of emotional investment. Did my efforts, my youth, my love, mean nothing more than this cold compensation in his eyes? 9,900? Was 5 years of my life only worth that much? I took a deep breath, then, trailing my voluminous skirt, walked into the changing room. The moment I pulled back the curtain, I saw a smiling face in the mirror, unfamiliar and ironic. I stared at the mirror, wondering where my composure came from. If you don't want to marry me, then I'll marry someone else. I pulled out my phone, my finger hovering over a contact name, temporary. Adrian. I had added him on social media a month ago after having too much to drink. That day, Noah and I had an argument. I got drunk at a bar, and Adrian drove me home. He was a friend's older brother, a notorious figure in the business world. Whispers behind his back called him ruthless, saying he only married for business alliances. That night, he joked with me, saying if I couldn't find a husband, I could consider a marriage of convenience with him. I didn't take it seriously. Now I dialed. He answered quickly, his voice low and hoarse. "Olivia?" Suppressing my trembling voice, I gripped my skirt even tighter. "You once said you needed a partner for a marriage of convenience. Do you still?" A second of silence on the other end, then a low chuckle. "Of course. If you're serious, I'll arrange the wedding for tomorrow." I didn't smile. Instead, his voice felt like a lifeline. I softly said, "Okay, I'll marry you. Olivia, I can marry you, but you need to be sure this isn't out of spite." "No, I'm serious." "Alright, I'll pick you up tomorrow morning." The moment I hung up, for the first time, I felt that a broken heart could also be a rebirth. This discarded engagement, I would return the favor exactly as it was given. I wouldn't argue, make a scene, or publicly shame his ideal woman. I would personally crush Noah's family beneath the wedding red carpet. When I walked out of the bridal boutique, the sun was shining brightly, as if nothing had happened. A staff member chased after me from inside. "Miss, you haven't finished trying them on yet. The third one is the most expensive." "Let her use it," I said flatly. My phone vibrated again. It was a text message from Adrian. "Don't worry too much. I've already set our registration time." I stared at the words, a sudden laugh bubbling up inside me. Noah said, "Let's not get married," but just 10 minutes later, Adrian said, "The registration time is set." This world is surprisingly fair. It took me 5 years to hear, "Let's not get married," but someone else was willing to arrange a new marriage for me in 10 minutes. I walked to the roadside and hailed a taxi. The moment I sat inside, all my feigned composure collapsed as if the bones had been removed from my emotional framework. I leaned back against the seat, my gaze vacant. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, asked nothing, and simply lowered the radio volume. I looked at the comments under that social media post on my phone. Briar, Mrs. Margaret, thank you for all your hard work. So happy to finally see this day. Every word made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't recall when she became part of our social circle. Perhaps he intentionally had me add her during a project collaboration. I actually believed she was just a client. Beneath that comment were nothing but well wishes. True love finds its way, a perfect match, meant to be. What a match made in heaven. I hope you stand firm on the stage I spent 5 years building. Don't fall off and break your neck. I tapped on her profile picture. The cover photo showed her and Noah in Capita L City, with his newly opened branch office in the background. And I remembered that branch office perfectly. I was the one who tirelessly ran around helping him secure the office building for it. The taxi stopped in front of the apartment we had rented together. I paid the fare and walked into the building corridor. A neighbor upstairs was playing games, and the sound leakage from their headphones was clearly audible. I remembered 5 years ago, when I first came to this city with him, so poor we only had an electric kettle. He used hot water to make instant noodles, and I watched him, smiling, saying we'd live in a big house someday. He said we would. I walked into the room and packed all my belongings. A whole suitcase, bulging, yet not a single item in it was ours anymore. I pulled open the closet and took out the last row of clothes, one by one. Deep inside was his favorite white shirt. It was an anniversary gift I had bought for him last year. I remembered the package arriving late that night. While he was showering, I squatted by the bathroom door, ironing it and humming a tune. My hand turned red from the heat, but I didn't care, because I believed happiness felt just as warm. He had worn the shirt many times, but he had never washed it himself. Every time, I collected his clothes, then carefully hung and ironed them, placing them on the top shelf. I gently took it down and held it in my palm for 3 seconds. Then, with a forceful tug, I ripped off the buttons, crumpled it into a ball, and threw it into a trash bag. It was the only thing I couldn't wash clean. Not worth keeping. I looked back at the bed again. I had changed the sheets, and they still carried a faint fragrance. He never smelled them, saying the scent was too sweet. Back then, I thought he just had a strange obsession with cleanliness. Now I knew he had never truly wanted to build a life with me. After packing the last piece of clothing, I sat on the bed and sent a message. Tomorrow at I'll be waiting for you. Adrian quickly replied with 3 words, be on time. I looked at the screen, my eyes stinging and dry. But I didn't cry. After waiting 5 years, what's a little longer? Tomorrow at 10 o'clock, I would walk into that meeting with my head held high. At 9:50 a.m., I left my apartment punctually. Today, I wasn't wearing a wedding dress. Just a plain white shirt and jeans, clean and simple. I wheeled my suitcase out of the neighborhood entrance, where a black Bentley was parked. The window rolled down, revealing Adrian in the driver's seat. Wearing sunglasses, he turned his head to look at me. Get in. I walked over and opened the car door. The moment I settled into the passenger seat, a white BMW suddenly swerved in front of the Bentley, blocking our way. Mrs. Margaret was the first to get out, followed by Noah and Briar, whom she had an arm around. I smiled. How proactive of them, the whole family coming together to stop me. Adrian took off his sunglasses, and without even raising an eyelid, asked calmly, are these your relatives? No, they're trash, I replied, my voice steady. He nodded. All right then, wait while I take care of them. With that, he pushed open his door and got out of the car. Mrs. Margaret was just about to loudly lecture me when she noticed his imposing presence as he got out, and suddenly lost her voice. Adrian wore a black suit and a Rolex watch, exuding an aura of coolness and intimidation. Mrs. Margaret asked, bewildered, who are you? Adrian glanced at her, then said indifferently, Adrian, Olivia's husband-to-be. Are you kidding me? Mrs. Margaret's face flushed. She just broke up with my son a short while ago, and now she wants to get married today? Does she think marriage is a game? Adrian smiled, a faint smile. It's your son who treats marriage like a game, not her, he said. He then turned to Noah, 9,900 to buy out 5 years of emotional investment. That's really something. Noah's face was beet red, but he couldn't utter a word. Noah and I truly love each other. Briar suddenly stepped forward, tears welling in her eyes. I know I came between you two. But it wasn't intentional. We have feelings too, we are each other's true love. Adrian looked at her as if she were a joke. True love? He slowly lowered his head, wiping a speck of dust from his cuff as he spoke. Of course, your true love. You love the 300,000 down payment she gave you, you love the investment projects she brought to Noah, and you even love the wedding stage she designed. Aren't all these acts of love backed by real money? Briar's face instantly went pale. What nonsense are you spouting? Mrs. Margaret yelled from the side. Adrian suddenly took a step forward, startling her into retreating 3 steps. His voice was deep, yet it silenced all 3 of them. If you chose not to marry her, that's your lack of foresight. But now that she's marrying, you won't be able to stop it. After saying that, Adrian turned and extended his hand to me. Come on, Olivia, let's go get registered. I looked up at the man before me, still a bit of a stranger, yet my heart felt incredibly settled. In that moment, I wasn't being taken away, I was being respectfully invited to leave. The car door closed, shielding us from the chaos outside. Adrian started the car and slowly said, "If I could have appeared in your life a few minutes earlier, perhaps you wouldn't have had to suffer so much." I didn't speak, just tilted my head slightly. Watching the retreating figures of Noah's family outside the window, I felt an unprecedented sense of calm. Adrian said, "But it's not too late now." I softly responded, "It's perfect." He turned to look at me. "Are you ready to be Mrs. Adrian?" We took a number at the window. The staff member scanned the identification documents and ID cards we handed over, confirming we were the couple there to get married. "Congratulations," they said. I didn't reply, simply no. Deaded. During the photo session, Adrian leaned in slightly towards me. His voice whispered in my ear, "Smile." I managed a weak smile. "Not like that," he said, taking my hand. "You're smiling as if you just buried someone." His words made me laugh, and the camera clicked, capturing the moment. Holding the marriage certificate from the Civil Affairs office, I felt like I was dreaming. As soon as Adrian got into the car, he changed direction and headed straight for downtown. "Where are we going?" I asked. He replied casually, "I'm going to get back everything you're owed." The car sped quickly, and the city outside the window rapidly receded. It wasn't until the familiar hotel appeared before us that I realized what he intended to do. "Are you crazy?" I turned my head to look at him. He parked the car and calmly said, "They used your venue, your decorations. I won't let all your hard work be meaningless for them." His tone was as light as if he were commenting on the hot weather, yet there was a reassuring strength in his deep voice. The hotel entrance was packed with cars, and a red carpet stretched to the doorway. Confetti was scattered all over it, and many of Noah's friends were taking photos at the entrance. Adrian walked around the front of the car and opened the passenger door for me. "Are you ready?" he asked, extending his hand to me. I nodded without hesitation, and he helped me out of the car. In that moment, I understood what a true entrance felt like. I was wearing the 3rd custom-designed white gown that I hadn't had time to try on at the bridal boutique that day. Its skirt fanned out 3 meters, and it was studded with diamonds everywhere. Just by standing there, I was dazzling. The dozing photographer beside me gaped, dropping his newly lit cigarette, and frantically started snapping pictures of me. "Isn't that Noah's ex-girlfriend? Why is she here? And in a wedding dress? Who's that man next to her? Oh my God! Could it be Adrian?" The wisp. RS around us grew louder, and all eyes were on the 2 of us. I walked down the red carpet, my gaze serene. The hotel doors swung open. On stage, the MC was loudly proclaiming, "Let's offer our sincerest blessings to the happy couple, Mr. Noah and Miss." As soon as he finished speaking, the audience erupted in an uproar. The spotlights shifted direction, and all attention in the hall was completely diverted. Mrs. Margaret was the first to stand up. "Olivia? Are you out of your mind?" I ignored her. I saw Noah standing on stage, his face instantly draining from red to white. He almost missed a step and stumbled off the stage. Briar's gentle smile, which had been plastered on her face, instantly froze. She shrieked, instinctively reaching out to grab Noah's arm. "What are you doing here?" she shrieked at me. "Today is our wedding." "I know," I replied with a composed smile. "That's why I'm dressed even more elegantly than you." The entire hall fell silent, stunned. Adrian then walked to my side and pulled a marriage certificate from his pocket. The still warm marriage certificate sparkled under the lights. "Olivia and I just registered our marriage. We thought this place was quite lively, so we decided to drop by and join the festivities." "Are you joking?" Mrs. Margaret trembled with anger. "You can't mess this up. This is the wedding venue we paid for." "Oh?" Adrian's gaze swept over her indifferently. "You mean this wedding?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out a document, and slapped it onto the podium. "You certainly booked it before, but as of this morning, I acquired this venue. So the ones who will complete all the wedding ceremonies here should be her and I, not you." Briar's small face was ashen. You're deliberately crashing our wedding. I silently glanced at her. I'm merely here to complete the wedding that should have been mine. Adrian turned sideways and pulled me into his embrace. His deep voice, amplified by the microphone, reached everyone in the hall. This wedding, we are officially starting now. The hall fell silent, time seemed to be paused. The MC, holding the microphone, awkwardly broke the silence. Well, next, please welcome the happy couple to the stage. A stir began among the guests. What is this? A wedding crash? But they already registered their marriage, so aren't they the real main couple? No, but what's Adrian's family background? To just acquire a venue like that? Are you crazy? Do you know who originally planned this wedding? This stage, the decorations, the menu, Olivia arranged it all. Holy cow, so she was supposed to be the bride today? I stood below the stage, listening to the whispers, my face devoid of expression. Adrian took my hand and walked directly onto the stage. Noah's family of 3 remained standing to the side, their faces so awkward it was as if a layer of skin had been peeled off. Breyer tried to rush forward but was stopped by a single look from Adrian. The MC looked at us, utterly exhausted. He carefully asked, "Boss, shall we continue?" "Continue," Adrian said, his tone leaving no room for doubt. "This wedding was always meant for us." The lighting technician received the cue, and a spotlight fell on me, making me the sole protagonist on stage. Standing on this stage that I had personally arranged, I felt a sense of unreality. Noah's family of 3 had originally believed their wedding would be flawlessly concluded, but no one had expected me to return in such a manner. The MC recovered himself and began to guide the proceedings again. Next, please welcome the bride to deliver her vows. I took the microphone, my gaze sweeping across the audience. Many acquaintances, but even more enemies. First, thank you all for coming today, I said, my voice clear yet powerful. Every decorative detail of this wedding was meticulously crafted by me, late into the night, in front of my laptop. I once thought this would be the most important why of my life. I paused, suppressing the surge of indignation within me. Though I lost it for a time, now it has become the starting point of my rebirth. I swept my gaze towards Mrs. Margaret. Thank you for bearing witness today as I free myself from the mire of your family. From this day forward, Noah's family and I will have absolutely no connection. A gasp rippled through the audience, and photographers' flashlights flared continuously. Adrian stood behind me, opening another microphone. Before the ceremony officially begins, I'd like to add something. To our friends in the media, he said with a slight smile, you may begin your live broadcast now. The main doors opened, and over a dozen prominent online influencers flooded into the venue. Noah's family of 3 trembled, retreating step by step. Mrs. Margaret's face was chalk white with fury. Are you crazy, Olivia? Do you want Noah's family to lose all face? Mrs. Margaret, I'm not the one making you lose face, I replied calmly. As things stand, all of this is your own doing. As soon as my words fell, all eyes in the hall turned to me. Adrian took my hand and walked onto the stage. The spotlight above seemed custom-made for me, following my every step. Since the wedding is officially starting, the MC's voice wavered. Next, please exchange rings. Mrs. Margaret's face was livid with rage below the stage. She yelled at us, nobody move. Today is my son's wedding. If any of you dare to cooperate with them, don't expect to get any more work from Noah's family. Her voice was shrill and grating, like a squawking hen. A few photographers hesitated, about to pack up their equipment. The next second, a middle-aged man slowly emerged from the crowd. Since Margaret said nobody move, the man began, I'd like to ask, are you still considered the client for this venue? The man was the hotel's executive director, impeccably dressed in a tailored suit, exuding an air of gentle refinement. He walked to the edge of the stage, smiling and nodding to Adrian. Mr. Adrian, we will fully cooperate with the wedding ceremony. The venue decorations are also ready. Do you have any other requests? Mrs. Margaret's face instantly turned green with fury. What is the meaning of this? This is clearly Noah's family's wedding. Not anymore, the man interrupted her. As of 10 o'clock this morning, ownership of this venue has been transferred to Mr. Adrian. Currently, the only client we recognize is Mr. Adrian. Adrian subtly nodded, and standing beside him, I felt like I was at the center of the world. The MC quickly stepped forward again, holding a tray and inviting us to exchange rings. Adrian took out a small black velvet box from the inner pocket of his suit jacket. When he opened it, I saw the design of the rings. It was a custom design I had seen in a magazine 2 years ago, limited to 3 pairs worldwide. I paused, stunned, but he said casually, I remember you mentioning you liked this style. I just happened to have some connections. He said it so effortlessly, yet I knew happened was built on immense wealth, time, and connections. Adrian took my hand and steadily slipped the ring onto my finger. His movements were so gentle, unlike the ruthless businessman he was rumored to be. He gave me a sense of security I'd never experienced. Someone in the audience clapped, and the applause, initially scattered, quickly spread. Someone murmured, this wedding feels more legitimate than the previous one. Exactly, this is the perfect couple we wanted to see. I squeezed Adrian's hand back and smiled softly. This was the first time in my life I stood on a stage adorned with roses and lights. Not preparing for someone else's wedding, nor painstakingly trying to please a particular family's expectations. This time, it was the path I chose myself. Even if it was merely compensation, it was dignity I reclaimed for myself, with my own hands. The MC announced, next, please. He asked the bride and groom to exchange vows. Adrian looked at me with a smile. You go first. I took the microphone and spoke from the heart. Adrian, thank you for standing by me today. I once thought my life had hit rock bottom, but you gently lifted me up. This marriage may have begun somewhat abruptly, but I promise, I will start anew with you, with a sincere heart. Perhaps there isn't love between us yet, but I will walk the path ahead with you, with respect and gratitude. Adrian took the microphone, his voice as deep as ever. Olivia, you're standing here today not because I lifted you up, but because this is where you always belonged. I'm not marrying you to wipe away your tears, but to start a better life together with you. As he finished speaking, applause erupted once more. And I saw Noah's gaze from below the stage, having shifted from shame to anger, finally settling into emptiness. He would never know that for some people, once they let go, there's no turning back. In the center of the stage, confetti cannons burst open in midair. All cameras were focused on Adrian and me. I stood shrouded in white lace, enveloped by the spotlight. The 3-meter train of my gown trailed on the floor, as if I were arriving for a delayed coronation. After the ceremony, we moved to a different location for a simple reception. It wasn't the originally planned hotel dinner, but another exclusive private club Adrian had arranged in advance. The location was discreet, heavily guarded, and outsiders were strictly forbidden. Are you afraid Noah's family will retaliate? I asked him from the car. I was afraid you wouldn't enjoy your meal, he said matter-of-factly. There'd be a messy bunch of relatives and friends over there, not knowing when to keep quiet. It would have been too ugly a scene. I glanced at him again, feeling a smile tugging at my lips. You're much more thoughtful than I imagined. Of course, he said nonchalantly, one hand on the steering wheel. I intended to win from the very beginning. I didn't reply, just turned my head to look out the window. In the distance, the lights on the tall buildings gradually flickered on, and the city was enveloped in a Klein blue twilight. At that moment, the phone in my bag began vibrating wildly. I opened it and saw that unread messages from various platforms had all reached their limit. My social media feed was also abuzz because of today's events. Did you hear? Adrian crashed a wedding today, and it was epic. I heard the original bride was stunned speechless. Had her wedding crashed and couldn't even say a word. I was there. It was like watching an empowering revenge story play out. Others reposted videos of me walking the red carpet in my wedding dress, claiming it was a woman's true highlight moment. Even marketing accounts dug up old videos of Noah and me starting our business, saying I was the true driving force behind it, making it obvious who the gold digger was. I scrolled through the screen, laughing out loud. I used to shy away from cameras, not even wanting to post a single photo of us together. Afraid of being called ostentatious, afraid of attracting jealousy, afraid of overshadowing Noah. Now, these same people were eagerly using me as a template for comeback stories about life reversals. How ironic, and how satisfying. Number one trending topic, right? Huh? I turned to see Adrian sporting a smile. Our wedding crashing incident, of course. I propped my chin in my hand, blinking as I asked him, aren't you worried? We've caused such a stir. Won't the media try to exploit it for buzz? Afraid of what? He replied calmly. I haven't done anything wrong. Seeing my stunned expression, he slowly added, besides, I did marry a beautiful woman today. Everyone deserves to see that. I rolled my eyes. We just got married, and you're already getting cheeky. Then how about I win you over with actions, he said seriously, though a smile played on his lips. I said nothing more. Soon, the car pulled up to the club entrance, where staff members were already waiting to personally escort us to our seats. The banquet hall wasn't large, there were only about 20 guests, all from Adrian's side. No false pleasantries, no forced smiles. Even the toasts were kept to one round, swift and efficient. I sat at the head table, with him beside me. Someone raised a toast wishing us marital bliss, and he simply nodded with a smile, "Thank you for coming." Midway through the banquet, my phone rang again. This time, it was a social media message from Briar. A voice message, over 30 seconds long. "Olivia, as a fellow woman, I truly don't know how you could do something like this. Noah and I genuinely love each other. Do you know what consequences your actions today will have?" Her voice trembled, as if she were deeply aggrieved. "Olivia, even if you're resentful, you can't destroy someone else's love, can you?" I handed it to Adrian and let him listen to it as well. "She's quite good at playing the victim," he said, wiping his mouth with a napkin without even raising an eyebrow. "Don't bother with her. She's no longer getting emotional validation from you, so she's naturally panicking." Emotional validation? Exactly. When you cried, she appeared pure and innocent in front of Noah's family. When you were humble and tried to please them, she seemed superior. But with you radiating such glory today, she's nothing. I listened, silent for a few seconds. I suddenly felt that while he didn't say much, every word hit deep. "She actually has the nerve to post on her social media feed," I said, laughing. "Look, she's claiming she's the one whose wedding was crashed." "Let her talk," he shrugged. "Aren't you worried she'll try to manipulate public opinion?" Adrian smiled. "Haven't you noticed?" "Noticed what?" "All the online sentiment is currently skewed in your favor. You worked hard for 5 years only to be abandoned over night, preparing for marriage only to be replaced at the last minute. When everyone thought you'd be crushed, you turned around, registered your marriage, made a spectacular entrance, and delivered a direct slap in their faces. What tabloid wouldn't want to write an empowering comeback tale about a female lead encountering something like this?" After he spoke a torrent of words like a machine gun, I laughed, a truly happy laugh. "Adrian, are you particularly good at generating buzz?" "I'm a businessman," he said, raising an eyebrow. "Buzz is attraction, and attraction is money." "What about me?" "You?" He looked at me seriously. "You are the only value I never intend to monetize." In that instant, my nose stung slightly. After the dinner, we took the elevator back to our rooms. Adrian personally pushed open a room door. "You'll stay in this room tonight. I'm right next door, just ring the doorbell if you need anything." I turned to look at him. "Aren't you coming in?" "You're my wife now, not my prey," he said, stroking my head with a smile. Hearing his words, I suddenly felt a sense of danger. Not physical danger, but emotional. Because he was rational, clear-headed, and restrained, while I was accustomed to giving, pleasing, enduring grievances, and making concessions. This man stood at the doorway, saying nothing, yet he made me feel cherished. Just as the door was about to close, he suddenly stopped again. "Olivia." "From now on, however you want to live your life, it's possible. But don't ever allow anyone to love you in a demeaning way again." My eyes welled up, and just as I was about to speak, he had already closed the door. Lying alone in the quiet suite, I finally relaxed. That night, I slept profoundly. The next morning, after waking up, my phone was inundated with unread messages. Trending topics had remained overnight, ranging from ex-girlfriend's flash marriage revenge to Adrian's impressive appearance at the wedding. The headlines were more outlandish than the last, and the comment sections treated me as an admired template for a comeback story. I looked at the photo of the 3-meter wedding gown spread across the steps and tapped save. I didn't want to share it with anyone, I just wanted to tell myself that I was no longer the humble, love-seeking Olivia. Just then, the doorbell suddenly rang twice. I thought it was room service. I opened the door, unexpectedly finding Adrian standing there. He was wearing a casual gray shirt, still looking a bit sleepy. He was holding a bag of breakfast. Seeing my still sleepy face, he raised his chin and asked, "Have you eaten?" I shook my head. He stepped sideways into the room and placed the breakfast on the table. "The milk is warm, and the cake isn't too sweet," he said. This kind of care left me momentarily speechless. It was as if I was so used to catering to others that suddenly being pampered made me feel a bit bewildered. "You're always this thoughtful?" He sat on the sofa, carefully peeling an egg. "Being good to my wife is simply what's expected." I took a bite of bread, a smile threatening to break through. "Are you really not afraid I married you with ulterior motives?" "I am," he admitted with a nod. "But I'm more afraid that you'll forget you deserve to be treated well." I was momentarily speechless. This man had a way with words. He placed the smooth, peeled egg in my hand, then asked almost nonchalantly, "Do you want to go back to the company?" "Which one? Mine, or Noah's?" "Your own," he said calmly. Anything related to Noah's family isn't worth looking back on. But my startup was registered under his name, and he even transferred out the core projects. Last night, I had someone look into it. Noah's side is preparing for a transfer of financing, he said, stretching. If you're willing, I can help you get it back. I looked at him, wondering if my ears were playing tricks on me. Didn't we agree we were just partners? Partners, yes. But we can also be allies, he said, naturally taking my hand. What's more, you are now Adrian, my lawfully wedded wife. His voice wasn't loud, yet it sounded more genuine than any vow I had ever heard before. For a moment, I even had the illusion that this man wasn't a temporary passerby filling a void in my life, but the cornerstone for building the next grand chapter of it. Adrian, thank you. I will take this marriage seriously, I suddenly said. Adrian looked at me and nodded. Me too. But taking it seriously doesn't mean you have to prove yourself to me. What do you mean? Olivia, you don't have to strive to be number one for anyone anymore. You don't have to constantly prove you're good enough, he said casually. You don't need to win against anyone, just live the life you want. After saying that, he got up and left the room. The moment the door closed, I realized tears were streaming down to the corners of my mouth. The phrase, you don't need to win against anyone, felt like it tore through every pretense I had clung to over the years. I suddenly realized that perhaps the meaning of this marriage wasn't about crushing Noah's family underfoot, but about allowing me to pick up the pieces of myself that love had once shattered. The day after the wedding, the trending headlines had shifted from ex-girlfriend's flash marriage to Adrian to ex-boyfriend's startup project reclaimed. I sat in front of the floor-to-ceiling window in my office, scrolling through one exposé after another detailing Noah's family's scandals. I finally understood why publicly shaming a scumbag was outdated, because true revenge was uprooting the person who hurt you from their pedestal. Adrian messaged me a photo at that moment, explaining, I'm at Noah's project financing meeting right now. They just halted his project on the spot because of unclear technical patent ownership, haha. Seeing, defeated and disheartened, in the photo, I couldn't help but smile happily. Because I was the registered owner of that patent. He would never be able to claim the copyright again. Surprise, surprise? Adrian asked. Not quite there yet, I teased him. He instantly replied, of course not, this is just the beginning. That night, I personally logged into my original account and posted screenshots of all the hidden original technical design files. The online forum in the industry instantly blew up. So, Olivia did all the work on this 5-year project by herself? Holy cow! Noah is utterly useless. I bet he's nothing but a gold digger. This is amazing, girl. Your story from the past few days is better than any empowering comeback tale I've ever read. I gently exhaled. It turned out I wasn't trying to prove my own worth, but to let everyone know, what Noah had lost wasn't just an ex-girlfriend, it was his entire empire. That evening, Adrian came to pick me up personally, saying he had an engagement where we needed to meet some people. I didn't ask further. I changed into a black suit dress that accentuated my poise and went out with him. The car stopped at Riverton's most exclusive private club. He led me in by the hand, and the entire room fell silent instantly. Several seemingly distinguished elders stood up, looking at me with complicated expressions. Is this your new Mrs. Adrian? Adrian said nothing, only giving a slight nod. His secretary beside him quietly prompted me, these gentlemen are the hidden shareholders behind Noah's family, and also representatives of several old financial groups in Riverton. I understood at once, this was the true arena of power. Initially, they didn't take me seriously. Some even started with a chuckle, young people are hot-headed, Mr. Adrian. Isn't it a bit much to disrupt Noah's family business just out of spite? Adrian slowly took a sip of his tea and calmly said, what if I told you I wasn't doing this out of spite, but to clear the board? With a wave of his hand, a thick dossier was placed on Th. E table by his secretary. All the data regarding Noah transferring assets, misappropriating patents, and fabricating revenue over the past 5 years is right here. Whether you choose to withdraw is your freedom, but I will not let Noah off the hook. At that moment, the entire private room fell silent. Some frowned, others sneered. Adrian, you're too aggressive for someone so young. Adrian suddenly chuckled, his smile like a hidden cold blade. I haven't even said you're too old and out of touch, yet you're already criticizing me. Watching this man, so effortlessly in control, I suddenly realized something. From the moment I said I'd marry him, he had no intention of backing down from his fight with Noah. To protect me, he was willing to offend his elders to pave a new path, a path solely for me. After the banquet, he drove me home. We were quiet the whole way. As we neared home, I suddenly spoke, Adrian. He turned to look at me. You've done so many things that could be detrimental to you just to marry me. Don't you regret it? He smiled, then said without hesitation, no regrets. The moment you stepped onto that stage, I felt it was all worth it. 3 days later, the Noah held an emergency shareholders meeting. I sat in the last row of the conference room, with Adrian beside me. Noah, on the other hand, stood pale at the podium, beads of sweat visibly forming on his forehead. I'll say it again, I spearheaded the development of this patent. But none of the shareholders below responded to him. I glanced down at my phone. Back-end data showed that a design video I had uploaded 3 minutes earlier had already been reposted tens of thousands of times by industry accounts. In the video, I stood before a whiteboard, explaining the concept and principles of the technology, every word so clear it was undeniable. All this material was recorded by me as documentation during project development at the company. I never imagined these records would one day become my weapon of retaliation. We don't care if you spearheaded it, a shareholder finally spoke from the floor. We only care if the Adrian now holds all authorizations for this patent. I stood up, my gaze calm as I looked at Noah. Yes, this technology was entirely developed and designed by me. Adrian is simply helping me legally reclaim what was lost to me. The room instantly erupted in an uproar. How is this possible? Noah murmured. You clearly said long ago that even if we separated, it wouldn't come to this. Yes, I trusted you back then. Adrian took my hand beside me, and I continued, my voice steadier and more assured, but what about you? You used my trust in you to leave me bruised and battered. Even now, do you still believe all you lost was a girlfriend? After saying that, Adrian led me out of the venue. And group president spoke coolly from behind us, gentlemen, the transfer contract for this technology will be publicly released online shortly. Concurrently, we will initiate commercial accountability proceedings. As for whether the Noah will be sued in the future, that depends on whether you're willing to go down with a fraudster. The moment the door closed, I heard a fierce argument erupt inside. June in Riverton was mildly warm. Standing in front of the bustling plaza, I suddenly felt as if it were all a dream. I had once endured pain and suffered grievances, all for the desire of a better life. But now, I was finally the one walking away from this unfair game, standing tall. Adrian stepped forward and took my hand. You won. I shook my head and looked at him. No, like you told me yesterday, I don't want to win against anyone anymore. The old me was afraid of loss, afraid of failure, afraid of not being good enough, afraid of being disliked. But now that you're by my side, I'm finally not so afraid. He said nothing, just gently pulled me into his embrace. Then from now on, he whispered in my ear, let me be brave with you. Always. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments. Feel free to share your perspectives, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more exciting stories. See you next time.